which brings me to the last two bills for Dr. Kaveh. The first is House Bill 5040. It's an act relating to animals and animal husbandry, Animal Abuse Registry Act. It creates the Animal Abuse Registry Act, which would require all persons convicted of felonies involving animal abuse to register on an online registry to be established and maintained by the Department of Public Safety. Dr. Kaveh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've put this bill in at the request of a number of constituents over the last few years. We know what the relationship is with animal abuse and sometimes domestic abuse and equally heinous crimes. This is a bill that I know is going to require a little bit of work. I know I talked to you, Chairman, about the wording Department of Public Safety. I think we're going to have to change that to be specific with the state police.
Yeah.
I know that when we had the Attorney General's office in that role, there was a problem with funding, etc. I have not spoken to the Attorney General about this iteration of the bill, so I cannot say if he would support or not support it. But I know that I'm going to move forward with this year, and I know this is going to be a work in progress. Thank you.
Any questions of the sponsor? Yes, David.
Chairman Kaveh, is there a mechanism if someone gets on this list for them to get off of it within a certain time frame or by an administrative procedure?
I don't know if there is one by administrative procedure. I think once you're on this list, you're on this list, and you no longer can purchase an animal. It will take something to get on this list.
Any further questions of the sponsor? Okay, we've got 3 witnesses that are signed up here. Stacy Ober, O-B-E-R, from AKC. Stacy?
Yes.
You're on live at the House Judiciary Committee hearing today on Representative Kaveh's bill involving animal husbandry and an abuse registration for people who abuse animals. So feel free to give your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've heard some powerful testimony this evening, and I'm grateful to have this chance to speak with you all. My name is Stacy Ober. I am an attorney, and I'm the legislative agent in New England on behalf of the American Kennel Club. And first, I want to express my appreciation to Chairman Kaveh for filing House 5040 and his commitment to take animal cruelty seriously. The American Kennel Club is 135 years old. It's a nonprofit organization that's recognized as a trusted expert in canine health, breeding, training, and responsible dog ownership. We represent more than 5,000 dog clubs nationally and 10 nonprofit dog clubs in Rhode Island that host on average 50 dog events per year. The AKC and its dog clubs support enforcement of cruelty laws, but I'm here this evening because I want to express some concerns with the concept of a registry. First, animal abuser registries have been around in jurisdictions for over 10 years, and some of the reviews and evaluations of the registry's effectiveness have shown that defendants' counsel frequently will advise their client to plead guilty to a lesser included offense in order to avoid having their name on a registry such as this. So in policy speak, the outcome unfortunately may result in lower rates of conviction. And secondly, The bill references animal hoarding disorder and acknowledges it as a mental health disorder. Dr. Gary Patronek was a veterinarian on the faculty at Tufts Veterinary Medical School, the only vet school here in New England, and he spent his career as an expert studying animal hoarding disorder and has done multiple studies. And I want to share with you a quote from him in one of his studies. Shockingly, animal hoarding disorder causes more animal suffering than all acts of intentional cruelty combined. In Rhode Island, back in 2017, some of you may recall, the legislature did acknowledge animal hoarding disorder as a mental health disorder and amended the animal cruelty law. And in that language, it describes that the court shall, in imposing a penalty, account for a defendant's conduct as a result of a mental health disorder. So if the registry is established under House Bill 5040, an individual that's been convicted for a mental health disorder would be on the public registry listed. And I just want to acknowledge for the committee, I know, for instance, there are federal laws that provide health information privacy protection, and that is a long-standing principle for mental health diagnosis and treatment as well. So my written testimony that I submitted wanted to acknowledge that there may be more effective ways of preventing and avoiding animal cruelty, and one would likely be committing resources to treating animal hoarding disorder, which would actually result in decreasing the number of times that an offender may reoffend. The studies show that without treatment, those who have animal hoarding disorder, the recidivism rate is 100%. And so even if the registry were in place, there would be nothing to prevent them from going out and collecting strays and other animals. So I appreciate the intent of the bill, the spirit of the bill, but do think there may not be the policy outcomes, that the bill is seeking to accomplish. The last piece is I'll just mention that the AKC is a nonprofit and our clubs are as nonprofits. The bill would include breeders as quote-unquote pet sellers, and pet seller implies the notion of a commercial label that someone's in the business of selling pets, and anyone who is a hobby breeder, they're basically engaged in that hobby to better the breed and enhance the breed, and they may on occasion sell privately to families the offspring of their personally owned animals, but they're not in the business of selling animals, so not unlike the bill's carving out as nonprofits the animal shelters, I would ask if the bill does go forward that there be just an insertion of the definition of breeder and hobby breeder separate from pet seller, so that there's not a confusion around whether or not hobby breeders are in need of a commercial license, commercial zoning compliance, things of that nature that end up getting twisted when the wrong terminology is applied. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Stacy. Are there any questions of the members? Seeing none. Randall Rose. Hey, Randall, you're on the air.
Thank you. So I am opposed to this bill. I understand that it's trying to deal with animal cruelty, but the bill does apply to animal hoarders. This person who simply has a mental illness is going to be placed on this public record registry when they did not intend to do harm, and the penalties for animal hoarding, particularly on a second offense, are large enough that animal hoarders would be people who have the mental disorder of animal hoarding are going to be subject to this bill and subjected to the infamy of being on a public registry. I don't think shaming people with mental illness is the best way to deal with it. I think there are much better ways to deal with the harm that is done by animal hoarding, as has been mentioned by the previous witness. the bill is, I do recognize the bill has been improved a little since the committee heard it last 2 years ago, but it still includes his targeting people with mental illnesses as well, and I do agree with the various criticisms that the ACLU has pointed out about the practical problems of trying to requiring a registry. I think the bill rests on a confusion between people who have a mental illness and people who are being deliberately cruel to animals. The bill claims that those who are cruel to animals will also harm humans. That's not true of animal hoarders. I think, and unfortunately, our laws in Rhode Island have a long-standing confusion between the mental illness involved in animal hoarding and animal cruelty, and this bill, unfortunately, continues to be built on that confusion. For those reasons, I am opposed to the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Randall. If there are no questions, the last witness on this bill will be Steve Brown from the ACLU. Hey, Steve, you're back up again.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Last time, I am here on behalf of the ACLU to express our opposition to this legislation. In light of the lateness of the hour, I would just encourage the committee members to review the fairly detailed testimony that we submitted along with 4 other organizations. You've heard some of the criticisms about the bill from the other speakers. We would join in them and urge rejection of the bill, although we understand, obviously, the good intent behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. That concludes testimony on House Bill 5040.